Well, the first thing it tells us is that this is definitely not about armed invasion. The Russian army already controls sufficient areas of the border to be able to enter Ukraine in any number they wish, at any time they wish. So this is a big public relations nightmare for Ukraine. The Ukrainian army is shelling civilians in Donetsk and Luhansk. Luhansk city has now been cut off for 2 weeks almost, and the humanitarian situation is disastrous. Putin shows that while the Ukrainian army is creating disaster for civilians, Russian army is supplying humanitarian aid, 2,000 tons worth of it. If Ukraine intervenes to prevent that column from reaching Luhansk, they will be in the same situation as Israel with respect to Gaza. So they're sort of damned if they do, damned if they don't. This is very clever from Putin's side, and it's very popular inside Russia, obviously. Well, this is a tough one. It depends on whether you believe that Russia is involved in supporting the rebels. It's also a question of whether there really is a need for food. I mean, there's plenty of food and all the logistics are there in Ukraine. You could just go out and buy it and send it there. So what is morally right and justified here really depends on what you feel about who is mainly culpable in creating the disaster for people in Donetsk and Luhansk. The Russian version obviously is that this is created by the anti-terror operation that Kiev is mounting, and Russia is now intervening to help these poor people. The Ukrainians say that Russia has created all of this and we need to flush out the rebels, and that any talk from their side of giving help is simply subterfuge for an armed invasion. So it all really boils down to who you feel is culpable here, and there are very different views on that, obviously. Well, this is a very big issue that is going to be increasingly difficult for the government in Kiev to handle. Foreign media are now beginning to pick up on the fact that there are, given the poor state of the Ukrainian army, they have organized 2 or 3 dozen of volunteer battalions to do the actual frontline fighting that the army is not up to. And some of these frontline volunteer battalions are staffed by people with extreme right-wing views. Some are openly flaunting Nazi symbols, and they're like a magnet for neo-Nazis from all over the world coming to Ukraine to fight. So whether this is morally justified in order to help them flush out the rebellion in eastern Ukraine is one issue. The other issue is, what are they going to do with all these people when the war ends? I mean, this conflict will end one day, and having these bands of heavily armed foreign mercenaries who like fighting in the streets, having them running around wild is not going to be easy to handle for the Ukrainian government. So it's a very debatable proposition that they're using these as frontline troops against the Russian insurgents.